can shape our economy, our security, and our future. That is the story. Coming up tonight on Lead Story Prime, the budget battle continues. Opposition leader Mark Golding takes the floor in Parliament, and his argument about the government's fiscal strategy is already raising new questions about taxes, growth, and Jamaica's economic direction. We break down what he said, what it means, and what comes next. Join us at 8 for the full investigation on Lead Story Prime. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story's Global Lead. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, CVM News.
Thanks for joining us for CVM News Afternoon. It's Friday, March 20, 2026. I'm Akeem Arret. Effective July 1, minimum wage will move to $17,000 per 40-hour work week, up from $16,000. The announcement was made by Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness during his budget presentation in Parliament Thursday afternoon.
Last year, we signaled our intention to continue the journey from a minimum wage to a livable wage. And we indicated that the next step would be to increase the minimum wage to $18,500. However, in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, many of our businesses are rebuilding, many households are still recovering, and the economy is now navigating yet again another external shock in terms of energy prices and shipping costs. In this context, the government believes it is important to strike the right balance by continuing to improve earnings of workers while recognizing the realities employers face. We therefore propose a measured increase in the minimum wage from $16,000 to $17,000 effective July 1, 2026. This does not represent a departure from our long-term policy objective. The government remains committed to transition from a minimum wage to a livable wage, and as economic conditions stabilize, we will continue the phased increase necessary to realize that vision of the Jamaican worker.
In the meantime, stakeholders are reacting to the increase in the minimum wage from $16,000 per 40-hour work week to $17,000 effective July 1. Council members of the Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise Alliance, Mohan Beckford, says it will have a negative impact on small employers who are already battling an increase in fuel costs. But Titiana Clark, a member of the JLP's youth arm, J2K, argues it's a good move.
Because if you think about the manifesto, as he made mention, you know, oftentimes coming out of an election, people say you don't really stick to your promises. I think this is one of those phased approach. We have to acknowledge what Melissa did. And so even though persons may be expecting the 18,500, at least there's an increase, and that is something that we have to consider in the, as I said, resurgence. There are so many things that Melissa would have impacted, but sticking to our promise and at least phasing it out is something that we have to acknowledge and see how it goes.
Yeah, and for you, Mr. Mohan?
Right, so for the increase in minimum wage, we understand that regular working Jamaicans are also feeling the pinch of the increase in cost. So increasing the minimum wage from that perspective is a good move. However, we cannot deny that micro, small and medium enterprises are going to feel it with the increase in payroll, with the increase in electricity, with the increase in operation, and even with the increase in taxes. We have to understand that balancing that equation means also to be mindful of the impact of that extra $4,000 per employee employee for minimum because it's $17,000 now per week. It's an extra $1,000 moving from 16 to 17. Within a month, you're paying as a micro enterprise an extra $4,000. Are there going to be the need to delay hiring? Are there going to be the need to lay off persons? Because
for $1,000, Mr. Moore,
it adds up, because how many are SME with 5 to 10 employees, and you're looking at the increase in energy costs, you're looking at the increase in the production that cost, the cost of doing business, because the other inputs within your businesses have increased because of energy costs. So we have to look at everything as a whole. As an employer, employer of about 25 persons, you realize it does add up, and you have to also be mindful that you also pay over taxes for these employees. And
in the meantime, Professor of Economics at the University of the West Indies, Professor Andre Horton, insists Jamaica needs to move away from the idea of minimum wage to a more livable wage.
1,000, but how does the MSME businesses
Let's be real here. You see, Jamaica is one of the few countries I've seen so fixated on minimum wage. Because if you have your people demonstrating their maximum potential, then they will earn what is called real wages. And if you look at how the discussions take place in more developed countries versus the discussions that take place here, in America they are discussing the value of the wage. So it's the real wages that people are discussing. How much can this money buy? You're saying increasing it by 1,000. How much can it buy? And that is the question we need to ask ourselves. And our real wages, as I discussed before, is tied to productivity. So Jamaica's real wage went on a spiral downwards.
Can buy some additional liters of gas we're talking about.
or some bottles of water.
Some bottles of water as well.
Criticized and accused for his continued use of funds from the National Housing Trust, NHT, for non-housing initiatives, the Prime Minister dissected the claims during his budget presentation. Dr. Holness says there's been no misuse of the NHT funds, while announcing a wave of benefits for contributors with a special focus on select groups. More from Nika Lewis.
A raft of initiatives and offerings for Jamaicans among issues addressed in the Prime Minister's contribution to the 2026-2027 budget debate. But on the matter of housing, Prime Minister Andrew Holness is keying in more incentives for the nation's civil servants and youth.
Effective July 1, 2026, teachers, nurses, firefighters, and members of our security forces and defense forces will benefit from a specially reduced mortgage interest rate based on their length of service. For those with 5 to 10 years of service, the applicable interest rate will be reduced by 1%, and for those with service of 10 years or more, the rate will be reduced by 2%. For young Jamaicans under 35, the NHT will reserve a minimum of 20% of scheme units, doubling from the previous allocation of 10%, and will provide an advance of $2 million to assist with deposit requirements for open market purchases.
Jamaica ranks roughly second in the world on the Human Flight and Brain Drain Index, trailing only behind nations experiencing extreme crisis or war, such as Samoa and Palestine.
Jamaica's housing crisis is not a financing crisis, it is a supply crisis. And no amount of money sitting on the NHT's balance sheet will build a single new home without the land, the infrastructure, the approvals, the construction capacity to put it to work. What we need urgently and at scale is a ramping up of housing supply.
He also announced plans to lower the wait period for accessing home improvement loans.
Also effective, July 1, the home improvement loan waiting period will be reduced from 7 to 5 years, giving existing homeowners faster access to funds for maintenance, security, green energy upgrades and expansion. All of these were commitments made in our 2025 manifesto.
But the elephant in the room remains the controversial continued drawdown of funds from the trust by the Holness administration, which struck a chord during the opposition leader's budget address Tuesday.
There has been no issue of misuse or mismanagement of any NHD fund under my administration, like the Outameni scandal under the PNP.
Dr. Holness attempted to clear the air, insisting there's been no misuse and that only about $7 to $7.5 billion of the $11.4 goes to the government.
Nika Lewis ending that report. It's now time for a break. Stay with us. More CVM news after this.
You good?
Yeah.
All right, stand by.
You want me look this up?
4, 3, 2.
What is meant by bank failure? A bank fails when it cannot meet its financial obligations to depositors.
So if the bank fail, that means we can't draw no money? That remind me of the woman where they run the partner and name off the money. Could even get withdraw.
However, in the event of bank failure, your savings are protected by JDIC and insured up to $1.2 million per depositor, per ownership category, and per institution.
So you mean to tell me, if the bank fails, I get back up to $1.2 million?
All of the accounts you have in the bank, in the same name, JDIC I go add them up.
So if you have $400,000 in the bank, you are going to get it back.
But the most anybody can get back is $1.2 million per depositor, per ownership category, and per institution.
JDIC, now go on with things, man.
JDIC, protecting deposits
for you and me.
New fast food always tastes to savor. Giving you the best, giving you the flavor. Nice enough the kitchens all across Jamaica. Happy smile when you see the price you pay for. Corned beef and the sausage. New pack. Ketchup and the pepper sauce. New pack. Beans and the baked beef. New pack. Rice. New pack. Oil. New pack. Yes. New pack foods always taste to savor. Giving you the best, giving you the flavor. Nice enough the kitchens all across Jamaica. Happy smile when you see the price you pay for. New pack.
Welcome back to CVM News at noon. The trial of former Sagicor executives Tricia Moulton, her sister Alicia Moulton-White, Malika McLeod and Tishon Samuels continued on Wednesday. A senior employee of the Sagicor group took the witness stand to outline protocols her ex-co-workers were trained to uphold. Crystal Williams was in court.
Former senior employees of Sagicor Jamaica are now under scrutiny right here at the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court, as credit administration, bank information, and account verification are now also being analyzed. 4 women face a culmination of 22 charges.
Following the questioning of the first witness on Tuesday, the prosecution began questioning the next witness about the process of opening Jamaican dollar and US dollar accounts at Sagicor, specifying differences between new and existing clients. She said all clients are required to submit documents to satisfy the standards of the Proceeds of a Crime Act and anti-money laundering guidelines. The witness pointed out that an independent person, along with the client's service representative, is required to validate, verify, and approve information being put into the system in accordance with the client's documents. The system, known as T24, identifies both these individuals, the authorizer and the approver, by a user ID and a changeable generic password assigned to them by the HR and the IT departments. This generates an audit trail. This witness returned on Wednesday after explaining the process of creating electronic banking profiles. She described what is meant by a ghost account. She explained it as an account established for a client or non-client without his or her knowledge, used to conduct fraudulent activities for persons who establish the account on behalf of the client or non-client. She also explained a treasury servicing account as an internal account used to process only foreign currency trade transactions on behalf of a client who may not have an account in one of the currencies in which the trade is being conducted. Just like each client, each branch has its own account numbers numbers or branch codes assigned to each currency. However, clients do not have access, nor can they give instructions for these transactions to be processed via these accounts. The assistant manager, the branch operations manager, or their designate are tasked with ensuring that debit and credit balances on each account are properly cleared and accounted for. The witness explained that balances should be nil at the end of the day, so if one is remaining, the designate must be able to identify what the balance is related to, establish its legitimacy, and identify the client to whom the balance is related. Before the court adjourned on Wednesday, the judge noted there was no objection from the defense. She said, "It is better for the evidence to be absorbed in detail." Bail for the defendants have been extended until the next court date, May 5, 2026. Crystal Williams reporting for CVM News.
The prosecution's 17th viva voce witness in the Klansman gang trial again took the stand on Thursday and detailed his involvement in the murder of a St. Catherine resident, William Christian, and the wounding with intent on another man on April 18, 2020. Clarendon was in court.
The court heard from a prosecution witness on Thursday that one of the Crown's star witness was an accomplice in the William Christian murder. Now he was also charged in relation to the incident.
The prosecution stated that this was a fact that was already disclosed at the beginning of the trial, that the star witnesses to be called are accomplices in the eyes of the law, adding the fact of what took place at the charging is not only relevant, but it is evidence which the judge can address at an appropriate stage as it relates to the credibility of the witness. The prosecution witness, a detective sergeant who took the stand on Tuesday, returned to court on Thursday and continued his testimony. He told the court that he charged a third man in relation to the murder of William Christian on April 18, 2020. He stated that during his investigation, he received information, ascertained his correct name, then had an identification parade conducted. The witness said that on June 9, 2023, he went to the Duhaney Park Police lockup. He was given an office close to the cell where he identified himself, informed the man of the investigation, and cautioned him that based on the identification parade, he would be laying charges for the murder of William Christian. The witness began to detail the conversation he had with the man, but an objection was raised. During cross-examination, the defense then sought to probe the fairness of the investigation conducted by the witness. Defense attorney Tamika Harris, representing the accused Lamar Rowe, suggested that the witness unlawfully detained one of the prosecution's witnesses, a man that transported William Christian and an injured man to the hospital. The witness disagreed, stating that although the man was detained without evidence, the detention was not unlawful. Meanwhile, defense attorney Paul Gentles, representing the accused Michael Walmond, questioned the witness about DNA evidence found at the crime scene. The witness testified that he did not instruct the scene of crime investigator to collect fingerprints. When asked whether there were any latent fingerprints linking Walmond to the scene, the witness agreed that there were none. The defense further inquired whether any ballistic evidence connected Walmond to the murder. The witness said no. Mr. Gentles also asked whether Walman's cell phone had been triangulated to determine if he was at the scene on the day of the murder. The witness said this was not done. The witness further testified that Walman was not taken to his home and that no search was conducted in relation to the matter. Carla Ramdeen, CVM News.
After a steamy meeting seeking the ousting of the president of the Harbour Street Craft and Culture Village, the embattled president is now mounting a defense. In an exclusive interview with CVM News, Pauline Anderson and her husband chipped away at the issues she says are at the heart of her critics' chastisement. Nika Lewis has the CVM News follow-up.
Nearly a dozen vendors from the Harbour Street Craft and Culture Village journeyed to St. Anne in hopes of getting external support from an emerging alliance to oust their president. But when CVM News visited the St. James-based market and inquired, some heaped praises on the president and labeled the critics as troublemakers.
The people them will say, them have a problem and them are the problem. Them my biggest problem in our market. If them come out, we can fix them. Our market is in Montego Bay, so when we have problem, we address it in Montego Bay. So I would like the media come and talk to people in the market. We're not getting any business, so that's going to be a thing that is said. We need business, we need something in the market for us. But The ship rotation is going better than when the two presidents before were here. So I can't attest to that. And she alone going to the ship, no. But we need business in here.
Some people who they got the ship now never got ship from market exists. They never go. So like they tell. If you come in here, Miss Annie's have a list of all the people them who got ship. So you can check the name them on the list and see if she want to got ship. Everybody, the same people them who they fight now, the same people them who fight and get out the first president.
Others continued to pour cold water on those views, insisting under Pauline Anderson's leadership, the market's seeing its worst days.
In bad, a bull buck and up Kankara for the market. She want everything else different.
You know when me I beg Port Authority to cancel Harbour Street Craft Market from going on the ship because I think that's the problem.